Let's start today's session, and I hope you can see the slides. Can you?
Yes, we can see.
Yes. And we were talking about central banks week before. Actually, last week it was a break for me because I had to take a day off. And before that week, we were talking about discussing about the central banks, and I went through these slides. I hope you remember. And we started about discussing the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And here I have made it very clear the central bank is performing two types of functions. Basically, the co-functions of the central bank. Co-functions means these are functions uh, which are exclusively allocated for the central bank through various legislations. For example, as we know, the central bank is governed mainly by the Monetary Law Act and Monetary Law Act, as well as there are some other related acts like the Banking Act, Finance Business Act, Financial Transactions Reporting Act, Payment and Settlement Act. All these acts are providing some of the powers to the central bank to perform some of the key functions. These are main functions of the central bank. And I made it very clear through different color codes. The first three are very much related to the price stability objective of the central bank, and the red ones are related to the financial system stability function of the central bank, and also some other functions I have already put it in the last two bullets. And then I also mentioned to you about the agency functions of the central bank. Agency functions means functions that are not directly related to its core objectives, but the central bank is performing these functions on behalf of the government. So the government has thought the central bank would be the best institution to handle these functions, and through various laws and legislations, that power is given to the central bank to perform it as an agency function on behalf of the uh, government. So that is the idea behind agency functions. And then we started discussing these functions. I hope you remember we talked about monetary policy function, which means achieving the price stability objective. Then we talk about the exchange rate, the one of the key functions of the central bank other than monetary policy. The exchange rate policy is also very much important for the central bank because it is working in collaboration with the central bank's objective of price stability and monetary policy. In order to conduct monetary policy effectively, the central bank would need to have exchange rate policy in place. So there we talk about the flexible exchange rate system in Sri Lanka, where the central bank has allowed market participants or market forces to determine the level of the exchange rate. And then we talk about the international reserve management function. This is also very important because it is a part of central bank's actions to preserve a buffer for the purpose of Sri Lankan payments, future payments. Now, in this regard, if you have basically looked at financial press, there was a recent news item related to this reserve management objective or the function of the central bank. If you have, I'm back to the video mode. I think you can see me. Can anyone give me an answer? What has happened in relation to reserve management, this foreign exchange reserves, very recently? There was a action taken by the central bank in order to safeguard the reserves of the central bank, and the central bank has done some important function very recently. Can anyone suggest give me an answer. What really has happened? If you follow the financial press, as I said, I is requested you to look at the financial press on a weekly, daily basis. So let me see, or let's see whether anyone has uh, got an idea about the recent development. Any thought on this? What has happened last week in relation to this reserve management function? Does anyone want to type your answer, or just let me know if you have any idea? I would be very much happy to see an answer if you have really followed the financial press. This measure was taken to strengthen the reserve level of the country. Any idea? You can see a lot of people online. Any view on that? May I call by name? Apeksha is there, Chandu, Dilshani, Dinetma, Isaac, Dolanji, Famila. Does anyone get an answer for this? What really has happened? No one? That's very unfortunate, because I told you to look at the financial press. I told you to follow up what's happening around you. But it seems no one has done it, right? In the class, if we meet physically, I really have a discussion on a weekly basis on this, but unfortunately here it's really difficult. But at least I hope you have done it, but it seems no one has
Is
done.
this Colombo Consumer Price Index increased to 4.2% in July 2020 from 3.9% in June?
That's also an important financial news. I really appreciate. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Inflation numbers has come out. That's true.
Mm.
Inflation numbers have come out. Colombo Consumer Price Index, that is one of the key variables that we are looking for. And you're right, that number, I think compared to the previous month, there is some movement. But broadly,
And bilateral currency swap agreement with the Reserve Bank of India.
exactly. May I know who's answering actually?
I'm familiar.
Fermila.
Yes.
Thank you, Famila. I think
Okay.
that's the answer I expected. I really appreciate and excellent.
Okay.
What really has happened, as you are rightly said, there were some information on the. There were three important things actually last week. One, the growth numbers, economic growth
Yeah.
numbers. There are some indication for the economic growth numbers. I'm not so sure whether it is really official, but let's keep
And
aside for the moment.
there's a
But
macroeconomic projection updates also, I think.
yes, and also as you said, inflation number came out. Then the third important thing, actually, the central bank has entered into a bilateral swap agreement, as you are rightly pointed out. You have rightly pointed out, the central bank has entered into a bilateral swap agreement with the Reserve Bank of India.
Reserve Bank. And
That
they
is the
also repurchase agreement with the Federal Reserve Bank in Europe.
Yes, that is also there. That facility is there. Actually, we have not used it, but the central bank has clarified that we have that facility in place. If we want, we can use it as a buffer. That is also part of reserve management activity, because this year we have some challenges in terms of reserve management. Why? We have to pay some large foreign debt installments this year, so we have to have foreign currency with us. So in case if we have some need that Federal Reserve System's reserve reverse repurchase facility is there. That is also a important thing. The Indian swap agreement, what is the purpose of that? We are getting foreign currency from India, that is $400 million, and for that matter we give rupees to the Reserve Bank of India. So that is the agreement of a swap, arrangement of a sub agreement. You give one currency and you receive another currency. That is the purpose. We will discuss those instruments later, but it was really important for the country to build up or to strengthen the reserves. Thank you. For the to strengthen the reserve position of the country, that is the purpose. So what you have mentioned, actually those are actually in the financial press. Anyone can actually get some view on this. So what I see, you have correctly gone through this financial news and you have some idea what's happening around. So I really request others also to do that, because these are very much related to our discussion. So coming back to our slides again, then here you can point out two developments actually. One thing, the central bank has entered into a swap agreement with the Reserve Bank of India, and the central bank has made arrangements to have a reverse repurchase facility with the Federal Reserve Bank equivalent to $1 billion, but it is not utilized. In case if we need some funds, we can pledge our securities with the Reserve Bank of Federal Reserve System and get foreign currency. That is the idea behind a reverse repurchase facility. Okay. And then I talked about the financial system stability. There we looked at the central bank's role in terms of securing the financial system through various measures, regulations, supervision, and all that. There we looked at various financial institutions supervised by the central bank. Actually, if you look at these numbers, the categories of the institutions, commercial banks, specialized banks, finance companies, leasing companies, primary dealers, microfinance companies. I think if you take the entire financial system, roughly 80 to 90% is basically regulated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So in that sense, the central bank is the main regulator of the financial system. And also I talked about the payment and settlement system, because payments system is very important to facilitate the transactions in the economy, to smooth out the financial system transactions. So for that matter, we need to have an efficient, safe payment system. So that is also provided by the central bank. There, I think these were the last slides I was discussing that day. I talked about some important systems managed by or operated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. One system is Lanka Settle system, where we have the real gross settlement system, that is basically to support commercial banking, large value payment systems. And also I mentioned to you about the Lanka Secure system, that is to facilitate the government security settlement process. They are issued in scriptless form, which means you don't have physical documents, and under this Lanka Secure system, these transactions are facilitated. So that is one of the key systems in the country operated by the central bank. And I also talked about the check imaging system. The central bank is facilitating the check processing process because that is a part of the payment system. We use checks, physical checks, but only difference here is the physical checks are not transmitted physically. So every bank, they can transmit the checks electronically to the clearing house, and the central bank is helping through various cycles on a daily basis to clear these checks. So it's a very shortened time frame now. Earlier, to realize a check, it took something like 2-3 days. Now actually it is very convenient and fast. I think the maximum is T+1. On the following day, a check is realized. Then I talk about the Sri Lanka interbank payment system, SLIP system, that is to facilitate the small value bulk payments. I gave an example. Most of the salary payments are done through SLIP system. Then I talked about payment cards. Payment cards means what we use for our transactions. There are various card types, credit cards, debit cards, ATM cards, smart cards, e-purses. Those are also like cards, travel cards. So various cards are promoted by the central bank. And I told you the central bank is in the process of developing a common card for various transactions. For example, transport, bill payments, mobile payments, and all these payments can be linked to actually one card. So that process is also there in terms of upgrading the financial system payments. And I also mentioned about you some recent other developments like mobile-based e-money schemes, QR code, which means you can simply scan a digital symbol or kind of a code, and that is directly facilitating your transactions. That is also one of the activities of the central bank. And also mentioned to about you some other developments like regulatory sandbox, fintech committees. Regulatory sandbox means simply the innovators in the payment system, they can come and do testing, do experiments in a space created by the central bank. Sandbox means it's like a virtual space created by the central bank for anyone to come and develop applications, test those applications. For things like that, the central bank has done it. Fintech committees are also there, which means to facilitate, promote financial technologies going forward. So those are the new initiatives in the country. And I also mentioned about you, the central bank has made arrangements to have a common payment switch. As a part of that, now there is a common ATM switch, which means you can use any of the ATMs to withdraw money or to deposit money using your ATM card. Earlier, it has to be your designated bank. Only your bank can give you cash out. But now any ATM can be used under the common ATM switch that is coming under Lanka Pay. I hope you have heard this term, Lanka Pay system. Through the Lanka Pay system, the central bank has provided a common ATM switch. And then the second phase of this common facility is the common electronic fund transfer switch. You call it SEFT. So the SEFT is the second phase of the payment switch. So there you will have a rapid fund settlements and transferring through a common gateway. Now you have multiple payment channels. Those multiple payment channels could be channeled through a common gateway. So that is the idea behind this common electronic fund transfer switch. So that will also be a kind of a new initiative in the future. So up to now, I think I covered many functions of the central bank. Is anyone having any questions up to this point before we move to the next part? All clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move to the next part, which means there are some other functions performed by the central bank that we need to understand. So another important function to support the financial system is the currency management. Currency management. So the currency function is one of the key functions of a central bank. Remember, I told you when I was talking about the history of the central banking, I told you most of the central banks, their first function, original function was to issue currency and manage it. That was the, we can say that was the only function at the beginning to support the government financing. Remember? So even now, the central banks are very responsible for currency management. So that is their one of the key functions. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka is also having the sole responsibility or the authority and right to issue currency in Sri Lanka. No one can issue currency. Even the government, the treasury cannot issue currency. The currency has to be issued by the central bank. Where do you get this power? That is basically through the Monetary Law Act. Remember, Monetary Law Act is the act governing the central bank. So under the Monetary Law Act, it clearly says the rupee shall be the national currency and the central bank should issue that national currency. You call it legal tender. The word used in the law is legal tender. Legal tender means currency, notes and coins. So that power is given to the central bank. Why the central bank is doing this? You have to build and maintain the confidence, public confidence about currency, because the central bank is a reputed institution for that activity, and the central bank is ensuring that enough and adequate currency is available for the transaction. So that is also one of the duties of the central bank. You have to have enough cash available in the system. So let's say there are some shortages for currency. So in that case, the central bank has not performed its job. So if the central bank is performing its job properly, it has to be there has to be adequate currency for the transactions. And how does the central bank issue this currency? Now it is done based on some estimates in the sense the central bank should know how much currency is needed by the economy. So to ensure the proper functioning of the economy, the central bank has to do this analysis and see how much currency is needed. So the currency is estimated by the central bank based on the transaction demand for currency. So here I have highlighted transaction demand. So mainly people need money for transactions. There are other motives, but mainly the central bank looks at the transaction demand for money, and based on that, the central bank issues currency. So how this currency is basically translated to the economy? Because people cannot get currency directly from the central bank, right? You can ask for some, exchanging of currency. Let's say you can give 5,000 rupees and make it, new 1,000 notes from the central bank counter. But it is not the way of issuing currency to the system. So currency is issued through the banking system, commercial banks. The commercial banks request the amount of currency notes and coins they want for the transactions, and various denominations also. So if you look at the central bank's daily operations, the commercial banks are sending their vehicles, safe vehicles, to get currency from the central bank. So central bank issues currency, and the commercial banks are, taking these currency in safe vaults and, transporting to their branches, remote areas, etc., etc. So this is the process of adding currency to the financial system. So here I have basically included a chart for currency. Roughly in our economy right now, there are about 870 billion currency notes and coins. 870 billion notes and coins. So what you have with you in terms of coins and notes, they are part of the currency in circulation of the country. I hope you remember this currency in circulation is a part of reserve money. Remember, reserve money is composed of this currency part and the central bank reserves. So this is the currency part. So in this chart, you will see some movements of currency. Now, may I ask from you, what are the key observations that you can make out of this chart? Because that chart, that observation gives us some idea about the currency movements of the country. Any idea what are the movements of currency here? So here we have 3 years, 17, 18, 19. So if you look at the movements, we can actually spell out 2 key observations on currency. What are the observations that you can make out of this currency? So I'll keep the slide with you. Any observations? How does currency move? Any idea? Let me see the chat box whether we have some. Okay. There is an answer. When transaction takes place, yes, that is the key requirement for the movements of the currency. That is true. I'm just asking, what are the movements of this currency based on this chart? What can you observe with regard to the currency movement of the country? That is obviously driven by the transactions, as Krishni has mentioned. But based on the chart, what you can basically observe? Any idea? Any observation? Apeksha, yes, a hike in April to May. Very good observation. Why is that? Why there is a peak in April to May? You call it festive season. And also, Apeksha, if you look at the chart, there is another peak towards the end of the year, isn't it? Why is that? Because of the festive season. What happens in the festive season? Why there is a peak in the festive season? In the festive season, people demand currency for transactions, isn't it? Especially in April period, people demand currency for what? If I say it in Sinhala, andung ganna, kaung hadanna, kokis badinna, right? You need money because of the New Year season. Towards the end of the year, that is also again New Year as well as Christmas season. People need money. So that happens. So when there are some special events, during those periods, currency circulation goes up. Now, recently we had elections and COVID period, remember? So during COVID period, I don't have numbers here in this chart. If you look at the 2020 line, similarly, you will see during the COVID pandemic period, the currency in circulation is high. Why? People kept currency not only for transactions, because of precautions. For the precautionary purpose also, they kept money. So currency circulation went up during that period. And on top of that, we have seen the election period also came. So during election time also, people have, large spending, isn't it? Now this year, you don't see it much, but in a normal year, when you have elections, there is a pickup in currency. Why? People demand currency for transactions, right? For these advertising rallies, posters, even to pay for voters, right? Those are also happening now. So that is a part of the currency in circulation. So that is one good observation made by Apeksha. There's another observation you can make out of this currency chart. Does anyone see in, other than this observation, any other movement of these lines? Any other observations? Now, what do you see about lines? There are few lines. Circulation has increased YOY, Apeksha again. Correct. So what really has happened every year? If you look at these lines, every year the currency lines 17, 18, 19 have gone up. 17 line is lower than 18. So 19 is higher than 18. Why is that? Every year the currency requirement goes up. Why is that? Based on the transaction demand. We know when the economy is expanding, the currency circulation expands. People need more currency. To support that, every year the central bank expands its currency in circulation. Roughly, at least depending on the need, you have to at least 10-12% increase every year. That is, if I may make it very technical, you look at how much inflation this year, how much growth this year. Let's say inflation is 5%, growth is 5%, then at least you need 10% increase compared to last year, isn't it? So to facilitate, otherwise there will be a shortage. To facilitate, every year you will see the currency circulation goes up. There are some years it comes down, but usually it goes up. So very good observations made by Apeksha. It's really excellent. So those are the methods or the abilities of reading charts. So there is a special technique called reading macroeconomic indicators. So that is important. So when you see a chart, you should be able to analyze it. You should be able to look at the principle or the rationale behind the movements of the chart or the presentation of the information of the chart. There is a story behind. So you need to be able to have some idea of those things as well. So that is really important. Let's move on. Now, with regard to currency management, I need to mention two things here. Now, the central bank is continuously providing currency to the economy as per the requirement. So when the central bank is doing this, there are two things that the central bank has some concerns. What are these two things? One is reproduction of currency notes. Reproduction of currency notes means people, at least a few people try to imitate or reproduce currency. You call it counterfeiting. හොරසල්ලි කියන්නේ counterfeiting. හොරසල්ලි අච්චු ගහනවා. Counterfeiting. So that counterfeiting notes is a problem because that will lead to a situation where people will not trust currency. Now, fortunately, this is very a small amount. I think it's 0.0001% point in terms of the size, but still it has a risk on the currency issuance. So the central bank has made very clear by law, it is not permitted. Only the central bank is in a position to issue currency. No other person is able to reproduce currency. Now, I hope you remember when you were a kid, you have done this thing, reproduction of currency. How? You take a coin and you put it under a paper, you take a pencil and you try to, emboss it. Okay. So that is a simple, innocent thing. But other than that, you cannot reproduce, which means you can't print currency. You can't make it for advertising purposes. Some people, they use it. I think we have seen during the election, some people, they have used it as, currency notes, their promotion. It is completely prohibited, an offense. You cannot do it. You cannot reproduce. You can reproduce for educational purpose, but with the approval of the central bank. So that is possible. Other than that, illegal printing of currency. Now it's easy, not like in the past when you have a computer, when you have a scanner, you can do it, but it's not permitted and it is very easily detectable. That is the thing. Now in the banks, bank tellers are very smart, very skillful. When they get a forged note, a counterfeit note, when they touch it, they know it. It's not a proper currency. And also in the bank, you have these, ultraviolet scanners. You put it there and it's very easily detectable. Because in a currency, there are various features. Some features are visible, right? Some features you can see on the surface, like this thread and, some various symbols, you can see it. And also there are some features you cannot see unless you have some special instruments. For example, you put it to your scanner, then only you will be able to see the currency. So those are some important security features. When the currency is printing, you include these security features. And also the paper used for currency printing, it's a unique paper, which means you cannot buy it. You cannot produce it. Why? It is produced in the press. It's not actually paper. It's a mixture of cloth and paper. So it's a special type of a paper. And it is very sophisticated, in a sophisticated manner. It's, made as a pulp and do process as notes. So it's really difficult to imitate currency. And as I said, you can do one transaction, two transactions, but later on, very easily, you will be caught. I'm just telling you because some people think, why can't we do this? And some people actually, they attempt to do so, but it's not permitted. If you do it, if you look at the sections of the Central Bank Monetary Law Act, now sections under 478, 470 A to D, there you will have offenses and the punishments very clearly mentioned. So if you counterfeit a currency, the maximum punishment is you will be put into the jail for 20 years. So 20 years is a long time. Imagine now you are 20. If you put it to the jail, it's 40. If you are 30, you will come out at 50. So we should not waste the time, valuable life. So no, you should not allow anyone to do that. If you know anyone, please don't allow them to do it. And it's your duty to inform the central bank if you are aware of this reproduction. So that is one thing. Second thing, central bank is worried about the good quality of the notes. So the central bank has introduced this clean note policy sometimes back, 2 years back, the clean note policy. We know when you take a note, some people, they have a habit, they make it very dirty, especially in the bus conductor. I think you may have seen, he puts currency everywhere, right? So they make it very dirty, and they bend it, tear it, and they do all lot of abuse to the currency, all sort of abuse. So we should not do it. And some people, they have a habit, they write on currency notes, they write their names, they write their girlfriend's names. The very famous picture we have, I think in this picture you will see, this is actually a real thing. Some person has written on currency, I miss you, right? Thinking that it will reach his girlfriend or boyfriend. But it's a myth, right? When someone sees this currency, it comes back to the central bank as a unserviceable note. So we cannot service it. Service means you cannot use it for transactions. So it will be withdrawn from the system. So this is not a good thing, especially when you look at developed country currency, they are very clean, right? So that indicates people's mind. Have you ever seen on a dollar note or a euro note, people write their names, I miss you, whatever all these things, have you seen? No, they don't do it. Why? It indicates the quality of the people. Imagine a tourist comes to the airport and he gets a currency note, and on this currency note, all these things have been written. So what would be the impression? So the first impression would be the last impression. So we should not do it. So central bank is actively promoting this clean note policy. I hope you remember central bank has given some deadline to submit these damaged or disqualified notes, unfit notes to the central bank or the commercial bank and exchange it, right? So you have to have very clean notes. So fortunately, right now we don't see it. Actually, it's a good trend. So most of the notes now, it's very clean and clear, and it's very rare we see some damaged or defaced. You call it defacing, defaced notes. So those two things I have to mention. The picture above I have, this one is the currency museum. In many countries, there are nice museums for currency, right? Every central bank has a nice currency museum. I have visited 2 currency museums, one in Germany, one in UK. They are extremely good museums. So there you have all this information about the birth, evolution, origin of currency, how they are made, what are the security features, and it's a special science, a different science. So there is a museum set up by the central bank also, just in front of the central bank building. So if you get a chance, and if you have your younger brothers or sisters, your students, you can encourage them to visit this currency museum. So it's a nice place. Okay, so that is all about currency management function. So up to now, we have covered the central bank's 2 key objectives, the price stability and the financial system stability. To support this, the central bank is performing some other functions as well. One important function central bank is doing is this data dissemination process. Data dissemination and compilation. Central bank is a good repository or depository of data, because nowadays we cannot make any decision, any informed decision, unless we have important data, unless we have good data. So data is available everywhere. Data is available in raw form. So what the central bank is doing, central bank is collecting this raw data, primary data, and processing it. That's one thing. And then central bank collects data from various institutions, various sectors, various segments, and formulate or compile these data in a unified way, helping to make decisions. So macroeconomic policy making is based on this data. So if you log into the central bank website, you will see large number of data is available. Especially we have a data library. Let me check whether we can have a look into this data library. If I log into the central bank website, can you see the website? Can you see the website? If I go to the website, hello, can you see this? No. Okay. Right. But let me share the link on the chat box. So if you go to this link, e-research, there you have what actually I have put in this slide, this one, it's there. So there you have data for all sectors, the real sector, monetary sector, external sector, financial sector, fiscal sector. Every major sector is covered in this database. So this is one of the important services provided by the central bank. Not only this database, as you are aware, the central bank is publishing various reports. Annual report, first one, and the most important report. And half-yearly report, you call it economic prospects report. Right? Then the bulletins, data bulletins are published. Then economic indicators, weekly, monthly indicators are published. Press releases, all these resources contain data. And also the central bank is publishing some important surveys. Those are also data dissemination initiatives. What are these surveys? If I type it on the chat box for your convenience, right? The central bank is publishing survey data on PMI. That's one thing. PMI means Purchasing Managers Index. So those data is providing the status of economic activity. And then we publish data on a BOS. BOS means Business Outlook Survey. What would be the future of the business? What would be the prospects of the future? economic activities. So those are the two important surveys we do and we publish. And also we do some surveys, inflation expectations. Actually, they are not published, but the construction sector indices like condominium price index, right? That is also one of the important things. Land price index, LPI. So these three you should keep in mind: PMI, BOS, LPI. PMI means Purchasing Managers Index, BOS means Business Outlook Survey, LPI means Land Price Index. So those three are the most important surveys done by the central bank with regard to data dissemination. So that is also one important function played by the central bank. Then central bank is playing some role for the government. So these roles we can actually classify into two major areas. First one, the central bank is the banker to the government. Banker. Why do you say the central bank is maintaining accounts of the government departments, agencies, and certain statutory bodies? Central bank is maintaining more than 40 accounts, government accounts at the central bank on behalf of the government. For example, the treasury account, deputy secretary's account, you call it DST account, is at the central bank. President fund is maintained at the central bank. Buddha Sasana fund, some other statutory bodies funds, they are maintained at the central bank. So as I said, about 40 plus accounts are maintained with the central bank. That is one important function. Central bank gives guarantees for the government. For example, in their transactions, the central bank can give a guarantee. Guarantee means you give some assurance for the transaction. That is also possible for the central bank. But one of the major functions provided by the central bank as the banker is providing the provisional advance to the government. Provisional advance. What do you mean by provisional advance? This is a temporary loan to the government. Temporary loan. What do you mean by temporary loan? The government does not have money at the beginning of the year because you don't have tax collections now by January. So the government is a bit of a difficult position. They don't have funds. To support the government, the Monetary Law Act has enabled the central bank to give a loan to the government. So what is the loan? Central bank is giving 10% out of the estimated revenue of the government. So I'll type it here on the chat box. 10% of the estimated government revenue as a loan. So this 10% is a temporary loan. The government has to settle it in 180 days, which means in 6 months they have to settle. Can you imagine the interest rate? Interest rate for this loan is 0. It is free money for the government. So the government is very happily taking this loan. And every 6 months they repay and they take it back because it's a kind of a permanent facility now. The government is relying on this facility because it's a good thing for them. So right now the government provisional advance is around 240 billion. So which means it's a large amount of money. So every 6 months they utilize this thing based on the government estimated revenue. So that's why I said it is an important thing, providing the provisional advance to the government by the central bank. All are under MLA, Montreal Law Act. Then the other important function played on behalf of the government is the role of financial advisor. Central bank is the financial advisor to the government. Now, in many instances, we have seen people call it central bank is the economic advisor, right? It's not. Central bank does not provide economic advice to the government. Central bank has some economic views, but officially it does not have any authority to provide economic advice to the government. But financial advice can be made to the government in terms of recommendations to the government. Now, one good example here is when the central bank, when the government is taking a foreign loan, the central bank should advise to the government whether that loan should be taken or not. It's a financial decision. It has financial implications. So therefore, the central bank is required to make recommendations on such foreign loans whenever the government borrows. Most important thing in relation to this advisory function, the central bank is submitting a confidential report on every 15th of every year by September 15th. You call it September 15th report. In this report, the central bank provides an analysis of the economy, its waves, risk, and also policies as well as recommendations. Some budget proposals related to the financial system, they are also submitted in this report. No one sees this report unless only the finance minister will see this report, because it is a confidential report. Before the preparation of the budget of that year, the central bank submits this report. Nowadays, now September is next month now, we are in the process of compiling this report to be submitted to the government. And government looks at this report when it prepares the budget speech and when it makes some policies. So this report is an important input to the government. Okay, so up to that point, we have covered all the core functions of the central bank. Core functions. Any questions? Somebody has written something, Tishara, land price. What is that? Do you have any question on that? I hope this LPI is land price index. Maybe you have raised a question on that. Is it? Let me know if you have an issue. Any other questions up to this point? Or everything is clear? Any questions? No? Okay. Can we move to the next session, next part of this session? Can? Okay. Now we are moving to the other set of functions performed by the central bank. You call them as agency functions. Agency means, as I mentioned to you, these are performed on behalf of someone. Who is this someone? The government. Central bank is providing support or assistance to the government by performing these functions. Otherwise, these functions are not related to central bank activities. But by law, different laws, the central bank is assisting the government to perform these functions. So let's look at these functions. First one, management of the employees provident fund. Managing the employees provident fund. I have put this word, the administration, but let's cut that word, because it is not actually related to the central bank. Even some administration is done, but actually the administration of the fund is done by the labor department. They are the administrator. They issue these information, approvals and all that. So administration, we can forget it here, but management of the EPF is the main function. What is EPF? Employees Provident Fund. What do you mean by EPF or Employees Provident Fund? Now we know for the government servants, they have a superannuation facility. Superannuation means a retirement facility. So when the government servants retires, he get a pension. He gets some support for his retirement life. For private sector people, there is no such pension scheme. They have a provident fund scheme. Provident fund. So in this country, the largest segment of the workforce is from the private sector. So private sector people, they have a retirement scheme, or you call it superannuation scheme, called as Employees Provident Fund, EPF. There's another one, ATF, but it's not actually or exclusively superannuation fund, because time to time you can utilize that money, ETF, trust fund. But provident means it's only at the retirement. So this fund was established under EPF Act in 1958. 1958 was the year this fund was established for the benefit of working class in the private sector. And in this EPF Act, it is very clearly mentioned the administration part is vested with the Labor Department, as I said, but the management of the fund, which means the financial resources, should be handled by the central bank. So in that sense, the central bank, the monetary board, is named as the custodian of the fund. Who is the custodian? He is basically the caretaker, right? Bharakaru. He is the caretaker of the fund, monetary board. So as the custodian, it performs several functions. What are the functions? Central bank receives central bank means the EPF department located in the central bank. They receive contribution from your employers. So as an employee, you have to make a certain percentage. Employer also make a certain percentage, and together the both contributions should come to the central bank. And if you have not paid, there should be surcharges on the employer. Those surcharges also will be collected by the central bank, and you call it income. These contributions as income. These contributions as receipts, right? And these receipts, and also there are some income generated from investments, because the central bank does not keep money in isolation. They invest. Through investing, they receive income. So every receipt, surcharge, income is collected by the Employees Provident Fund of the central bank and the monetary board. And at the retirement, members, they will ask for their benefits. So as determined by the Commissioner of Labor, because he should give his permission, any employee, once he reaches the retirement age, they can withdraw their money. Normally, female, when she reaches 50, she is eligible to get her refunds. Normally, a male, when he reaches 55, he can claim for the retirement benefits. There are some exemptions. For example, for female, when they are married and they have resigned from the job, there is a way that they can claim for their benefits. But normally, benefits are paid at the retirement. Third function, as I said, EPF is investing this money in appropriate securities. EPF has an investment guideline. It does not invest, on ad hoc basis. There is an investment guideline. Based on the investment guidelines, EPF is investing these excess funds. What are the investment avenues? EPF invests in government securities, investing in shares, investing in repo market, investing in FDs. Likewise, they can invest in designated investment avenues, mainly government securities. I think roughly 90% of the EPF funds are invested in government treasury bills and treasury bonds, because that is the largest market we have. The share market is not sufficiently large for the EPF to invest freely. Government securities market is the largest market. Not only that, the central banks keep the funds of the people, the members, and for keeping that money, central bank is paying an interest on member balances. So every year in December 31st, based on the balance you have, the central bank is paying an interest. That interest is actually the surplus of that year. Surplus is equally distributed based on your balance. So that's why everyone gets a similar percentage in terms of the interest. Let's say it's 10%, 10% for every year, everyone. Based on your balance, you get 10% interest. Normally, EPF is trying to pay a higher interest, closer to 10%, because it generates good income. And then it maintains accounts for the fund as well as each member. For example, every 6 months or every year, you get a balance statement from the EPF. So, which means they are doing record keeping and accounting, and as a result, you get your information every year. Annual accounts are published by the EPF. That is also one of the key things done by the EPF. And there are some latest administration activities done by EPF. These are some new, sorry, let's cut this part. Latest initiatives or services. Member account statements, I already mentioned to you. People get their statements every 6 months. Pre-retirement refund scheme, there was a refund scheme earlier. Now actually it is not in place. This has been suspended. Sometimes back, government allowed you to withdraw 30% from your balance before you retire. So that 30% you can use for any activity. I think normally for some specific needs, but it is not in operation right now. Housing loan facility is still there. It's an important thing, which means the central bank does not, or the EPF does not give any housing loan to you based on EPF. But at a bank, you can keep your EPF balance as a security. So central bank issues a letter as a security for the housing loan facility. So it's a collateral. Your balance is becoming a collateral and you borrow out of that collateral. But what really happens, people thinking they should not worry as they have a collateral, some people, they happily default this housing loan. What will happen when you happily default? The bank will happily charge you at high rates. So your EPF balance will be at risk. They will charge you from the EPF balance. So if you have any housing loan with the EPF facility, so make sure you should not default it because you will lose your balance. This is a repetition. And there are some other initiatives. Central bank started image scanning because there are large amount of records, master files. Your information is there from 1950s. So the EPF started scanning these images. It has a mobile service scheme. EPF is going to various places, especially to the state sector, and also considering e-return system for EPF payments, which means large value payments can be sent through electronically. For example, there are some companies, they have 2,000 to 3,000 employees. So without sending physically, they can send electronically. Re-registration of EPF numbers is done because most of the people, they have number of EPF accounts since they have worked for many places in different numbers. So it's a really a difficult process when you want to borrow refund your money. So central bank has identified that weakness and introduced a unique identification number based on your NIC number. So based on that, there is a re-registration. Now, wherever you work, you get a single number, which means you are based on your ID number. So that is also one important thing. So here we have some summary about the fund and its performance. So this is actually based on its investments and its performance in terms of investment. As I said, they generate a lot of income and it is distributed among the general public. If you look at this last line, as I said, every year it has paid closer to 10% on your balances. So it's a good return. 10% means good return. So when you have your EPF money every year, you earn some reasonable or decent return out of that. Now, only the missing information in this slide is the size of the fund. Now this fund is closer to rupees 1.8 trillion. 1.8 trillion means it's a huge fund. 1.8 trillion means that is 1,800 billion rupees. So it's a large fund. So every year it gets income, it gets new contributions. Fund is becoming very large. So now this EPF has another challenge to see the avenues to invest. Where should we invest? Because when it becomes a large fund, there should be adequate mechanism, ways and means to invest these funds. Okay. So that is about EPF. The second agency function is the public debt management. Public debt management means, what do you mean by public debt? That is government debt. Because we know governments are always running deficits. Even in the case of Sri Lanka, the government is facing a deficit because revenue is not sufficient. So in that case, the government needs to borrow from the markets. So when it borrows, the treasury borrows only from foreign sources. There is a department at the treasury called External Resource Department. They borrow externally. But domestic debt, domestic debt means debt or borrowings raised within Sri Lanka is done by the central bank. You call it public debt management. Also, foreign debt servicing, which means when the treasury borrows, the repayment and paying interest is done by the central bank. So this domestic debt management as well as foreign loan servicing, both we can call it public debt management. So this is under section 113 of the Montreal Act. There, the central bank is given a special role as the public debt agent. Public debt agent. So as the public debt agent, as I already mentioned, the central bank is servicing, raising domestic debt and also servicing domestic as well as foreign debt. So in that case, central bank is trying to make it at lowest possible cost and low risk. So that is the main focus of the central bank. When they raise money for the government, they are trying to make it as low as possible, the cost. And also they are trying to minimize the risk as much as possible. So that is the main concern of the central bank. In addition, central bank is developing the government securities market. They introduce various new products, various new market activities by the central bank under public debt management. So here we have some important initiatives in relation to public debt management of the central bank. One thing, as I already mentioned, I think at a previous slide, the central bank is operating a scriptless security settlement system. So here you don't have any physical documents. Now any treasury bill or a bond is an electronic entry. You don't have a paper. Earlier it was a nice document, nice certificate. Now there are no physical documents, they are in scriptless form. So the central bank introduced this thing since 2002. That is an important thing. And also central bank has opened its market, treasury bill bond market, for foreigners and people who are living abroad. In the past, they could not buy treasury bills bonds in the domestic market. But central bank sometimes back, in order to attract foreign money, it opened the treasury bill bonds market for foreigners. Earlier it was a higher percentage, but right now it is only 5%, which means only 5% of the total stock can be issued or purchased by the foreigners. 95% should be held by domestic investors. So that is the idea. So this 5% is bringing money, foreign money to the economy, which means some foreign currency. We need foreign currency time to time for our purposes. So this 5% is helpful for us to bring that foreign money. But right now, actually, this is very low. It's around, I think, less than 2% right now, because all the foreign investments last year, this year, have moved away from Sri Lanka, as I say, I indicated some few weeks back also, due to some factors like uncertainty, interest rate changes, and all that. Funds can move. It's not a static thing. Any time it could go out, and also it could come back. Okay. And also in 2007, central bank introduced a new instrument called, I told you, market development. So under market development and expanding the available securities for the central bank, in 2007, central bank introduced sovereign bonds. Sovereign means the government. international sovereign bonds, international government bonds. So these are issued not in Sri Lanka, outside Sri Lanka, in US market, in UK market, or wherever outside the Sri Lanka, in foreign currency. You have to be very careful. We issue sovereign bonds outside Sri Lanka in foreign currency. So we use a term for that, Euro bonds. Euro bonds. I will type it here. These are called as Euro bonds. Euro means bonds issued in other countries in their own currency, not from the local currency. That is the idea. So we have issued, I think, 10-15 bonds up to now. When we borrow out of these bonds, we borrow actually in dollars, $500 million, $1.5 billion. So far, we have raised, I think, the biggest borrowing we have done is $2.5 billion. I think it's last year. So these are foreign money. In 2017, the central bank has introduced a new auction system. Because this is a modification. I think you are aware there were some discussions going on starting from 2015 with regard to the bond issuance process. To address any shortcomings of that process, the central bank has introduced a new auction system in 2017 to improve the transparency and efficiency of the debt management process. And also, as a part of market development, last year in 2017, central bank introduced this Bloomberg electronic bond trading platform, which means the bond trading is done electronically in a platform called Bloomberg. Bloomberg, I told you, this financial press, under financial press, they are also providing platforms to make transactions. So when you do transactions on the Bloomberg platform, the price discovery, the price mechanism, information dissemination, everything becomes very active and very comprehensive. So that is done under this trading platform. And also the central bank, the public debt department, they are disseminating information on the public debt portfolio. So those are related to the debt management. So I have already covered two agency functions. First one, EPF management. Second one, public debt management. Third one, regional development. There is a special department for this, regional development department. Their role is to promote financial inclusion and reducing poverty. Now, we should understand one thing here. The issue of poverty cannot be addressed by the central bank. Central bank is not in a position to give solutions to poverty. It's the role of the government. But central bank can help that government initiative in reducing the poverty. So central bank is having various facilities, processes, mechanisms to ensure this activity. So that is coming under financial inclusion. Financial inclusion. What do you mean by financial inclusion? You are trying to bring all people into the financial system, especially poor and underserviced, unprivileged people. For example, in the remote areas, not in the center, not in the city, in the remote areas, there are various people, even without having a bank account, even without having facilities from a bank, They are not in a position to get a loan from a bank. There are people like that. We have to bring them into the formal financial system, but that's what you call as financial inclusion. If you don't do it, what will happen? They will go to other people like informal sector, illegal activities, pyramid schemes, unauthorized deposit mechanisms. So those will be promoted if the central bank does not play this role. So considering that central bank is promoting financial inclusion to support low income groups with a view to promote regional development and reduce poverty, as I said, the regional development department. So central bank is doing this thing. You have to have funds, no? You have to have money to do so. So there are some various ways that you get funds. One thing, the central bank can get funds from donor agencies, from foreign agencies like, let's say, ADB, USAID, likewise foreign funds you can have. Then you can have treasury funds. The treasury is also in a position to give funds. For example, the Swashakti program, Saubhagya loan scheme. Those are actually from the treasury funds. And in the past, the central bank is also having their own funds. Like in the past, there was a fund called Susahana. So Susahana fund is central bank funds. Nowadays, during this COVID period, the central bank is having some loan schemes under Saubhagya loan scheme and contractor loan schemes. Those are central bank funds. So these different sources will bring funds to the central bank, and central bank is providing lending to the needy sectors through participating institutions, PFIs. So there are various participating institutions like banks, NGOs, microfinance companies, various community service-based, community-based institutions. They are the people who distribute this money to the needy sectors. Especially, as I said, microfinance activities are supported by these funds. Small and medium SME activities are supported by these funds. So under this activity, the regional development activity, there are some important attributes related to the central bank function. So as I said, the regional development funding, as I already mentioned to you, these lending programs are handled by the central bank. And also credit guarantee schemes. Credit guarantee schemes means the participating institutions, they provide loans from their funds, and central bank is giving a guarantee. Let's say the borrower defaults, or the central bank is giving some interest component. If the default is there, central bank is reimbursing to the lender. If there's a gap in the interest rate, the central bank fulfills that gap. So those are some credit guarantee refinancing schemes. So I recommend you write credit guarantees stroke refinance schemes. Credit guarantee and refinance. These are two things actually. Refinance. Right? Credit guarantee and refinance schemes. So credit guarantee means in the case of a default, they help to the lending institutions. Refinance means if the lending institutions are giving at a particular rate, the central bank is providing some interest rate subsidy or a gap to encourage lending. So these are the facilities provided by the regional development department. And also awareness building. Awareness building means central bank is continuously conducting lectures, sessions and all that to improve the knowledge of the people, because people get into trouble when they don't have proper knowledge or when they don't have proper ideas. So as a result, the central bank is conducting their uh, awareness programs for the purpose of enhancing the knowledge of the people. Then provincial officers means there are various provincial officers of the central bank in various places like Matara, Matale, Anuradhapura, Nuwara, Trinco, Kilinochchi. Likewise, these provincial officers are helping the central bank to promote the financial inclusion facility. Foreign exchange management, another important agency function. In the past, the central bank has been conducting foreign exchange control. If you may have heard earlier, there was a special act called Foreign Exchange Act in 1950s. This act is basically to control foreign exchange. But now the central bank is not controlling foreign exchange. They are basically managing foreign exchange activities. So there is a new act called Foreign Exchange Act 2017. Under this act, the central bank is giving certain permission for transactions. Now you have to know one important thing here. In Sri Lanka, our foreign transactions are greatly liberalized, which means there are two accounts in our foreign transactions: current account and the financial account. Current account is basically liberalized, which means you can do any transactions under current account: buying and selling goods and services, importing, exporting. That's not a restriction. There's no restriction. Financial account, you have to have some certain restrictions in place. Investments not are permitted fully. You cannot, as I said, for example, treasury bill investments is only permitted for 5%. That's a control. So that is under current capital account or the financial account. So for those transactions, there are some permissions needed. Special permissions, general permissions. Likewise, there are various permission scheme. So if you are migrating, you have to get some permission to take funds out of the country. Central bank is doing surveillance of foreign transactions and giving authorization to authorized dealers. For example, there are currency dealers, authorized dealers who are buying currency from you. Sometimes there are sellers also. For example, banks, they can buy and sell both. For them, the central bank is giving a certificate, authorization to do so. So this is one of the important function in terms of foreign exchange management. This is not reserve management, right? Don't be confused with that. This is an agency service to support the government, because all the powers are with the minister. Central bank is basically exercising or implementing those powers. And then one of the recent functions added to the central bank, I think not more than 10 years, around I guess 2007-8 period or 9 period, after the financial crisis, especially actually after the 2001 9/11 attack, there was a global trend towards countering money laundering and terrorist financing. Money laundering means putting illegal money into the system, proper system. Terrorist financing means channeling funds for terrorism. Both are prohibited internationally. There is an international body for this, financial transaction, financial task force actually, FTA, FTFA. So that task force has created certain restrictions in regards to these illegal activities. For that matter, they have promoted the idea of financial intelligence. Even in Sri Lanka, we have this financial intelligence. It's a government entity, but it is set up in the central bank. So we have a unit called Financial Intelligence Unit based on the provisions of the Financial Transaction Reporting Act. So under this act, the central bank is monitoring transactions. For example, suspicious transactions are monitored. Large value transactions are monitored. For example, if you do a fund transfer more than 1 million, the central bank monitors what is the source, why this fund is transferred, what are the income sources. Likewise, they are very keen to find out the data. So banks are supposed to report data to the central bank for those transactions. And any suspicious transactions coming especially from the foreign countries, the central bank is monitoring, because these could be money laundering or terrorist financing. So under FATF, as I said, the central bank up to recently, it was under grey list. Grey list means central bank had not fulfilled certain actions. But recently, central bank has been removed from the grey list. Now they are actually considered as a country. Central bank is Sri Lanka is considered as a country which has implemented recommendations of the FATF. So we are in a good shape in terms of financial intelligence. So that is also important function. Last thing I want to highlight is what the central bank has done recently, right? Because this is an important discussion. I think you may have heard the central bank was accused in certain instances, saying that central bank has failed to support some of the activities during the COVID-19 period. But if you look at, the central bank has done a large number of operational and regulatory activities during this COVID-19 period. Especially, central bank was the first country in the world to reduce interest rates before the COVID outbreak. I think in February, central bank has started reducing interest rates. So now, if you look at so far this year, interest rates have been reduced by 250 basis points by the central bank. Statutory reserve ratio has been reduced by 300 basis points, injecting 200 billion to the market. That's a large amount of money. Central bank has reduced the bank rate, remember, lend of last resort rate, by 650 billion, 650 basis points up to now. Central bank has supported the government by purchasing treasury bills from the government, because these days government is in a difficult position. Actually, at least up to the election, they could not raise funds from the market as they wanted, and there was no money to the government to pay for certain services, and even for provide subsidies to the people, especially these 5,000, 10,000 rupee. It was provided by the government. Actually, for that matter also, central bank supported by purchasing treasury bills from the government directly. More than up to now, this is 232, but right now, if you look at the numbers, it is more than 260 billion purchased by the government. And also, central bank has introduced various credit schemes during this period. If you recall, debt moratoriums are given to the services, to various borrowers, and also there are various loan schemes. Saubhagya 1 loan scheme, 30 billion has been provided under that scheme. Saubhagya loan scheme 2 and also Saubhagya loan scheme 3. Altogether, more than 150 billion rupees have been allocated by the central bank. And also there are some other segments like contractors, suppliers of the government. Government has not paid for them because of the treasury funding shortages. For them also, the central bank has introduced some loan schemes. So all in all, the central bank has done or some have made some attempts to support the economy during the COVID-19 period. In addition to this, especially the payment system working properly during the COVID period. Especially these digital payments and contactless payments were very important during the COVID-19 period. So as a result, the central bank has promoted card payments. There were no shortages of cash. Any ATM would have money at any time. And even to the doorsteps, the central bank has delivered cash through these ATM trucks, if you have seen. So a lot of things have been done by the central bank during the COVID-19 period. So I really recommend you, there is a press release issued by the central bank. Here I have given you the link. And if you click on this link, there's a 19-page document, 19-page document of the measures done by the central bank during this period. I don't want you to read entire 19 pages for the exam, but for the exam, at least you should know what are the key measures introduced by the central bank during this COVID-19 period. So that's the purpose to have this slide here. So please make sure you have some idea. So here in this press release, I have highlighted this box. Roughly 5 measures have been introduced by the central bank. Under these 5 measures, there are various sub measures or sub activities done by the central bank to support the COVID hit economy during the last few months, even now. So I really recommend you go through this press release and have some idea about the measures implemented by the central bank during this period. So that's all I have to say about the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And as I said, there are some references for you to look at. At least I really recommend you to look at this, the book in the middle. There's a small booklet, CBSL Objectives booklet available on the Central Bank website. That gives you some clear idea about the central bank activities. And as I said, if someone wants to have a thorough understanding about the operations, in the annual report, there is a special section called Part 2. In the Part 2, we have a large number of comprehensive set of details about the each and every function and the departments of the central bank. There we can stop, and there are some questions related to the central bank which I have not included here. Some are included under our monetary policy discussion, and some questions will be incorporated into the next sessions when we talk about the financial system. So with that, let's conclude today's session. And I hope you have a very good understanding about the central bank being the main regulator of the financial system. And that will be helpful for us to understand the other institutions in the economy and how they are performing in the broad financial system to achieve the objectives of the financial system. So next week, I'm going to discuss the financial institutions. So I have already shared the slides with you. Have a look into these slides before you come to the class. Then it will be very easy for you to digest what I discuss here. And let's have a good discussion next week. So can I stop here? If you don't have any question, let's stop at this point. If you have any questions, you can just raise before I log out. Thank you very much.